It is the first time I have seen this, heard about this GS seminar on GST or impact of COVID. So we'll start the session, and before that, I will give the introduction of Rajat Mohan. So Rajat Mohan is a fellow fellow member of course of Institute of Chartered Accountant of India on Information System Audit. It is DISA. He has authored more than half dozen books in indirect tax, GST, doing his forte with publishers like Wolters Kluwer and Bharat House. He has been authoring books on GST since 2010 every year, which has gained wide popularity in India and internationally also. He is several online portals, news portals, including Times of India, Economic Times, Hindustan Times, Indian Express, The Hindu, Live Mint, Hindu Business Line, Business Standard, Bloomberg, Business Today, Financial Express, First Post, NDTV, ET Retail, business houses. He's conducted workshops and trainings for more than 5,000 professional and corporate executives on GST. His core strength is ability to assist in GST implementation seamlessly. His current client portfolio covers all major sectors of economy, which include infrastructure sector, e-commerce industry, manufacturing, travel and tourism, oil and gas sector, education sector, banking sector, information technology, and financial services. Is a member of Indirect Tax Committee of PhD Chamber of Commerce and Association, National Council of Indirect Tax. He was also deputy convener for the GST Research Studies Group of NIRC of ICAI, and he was also a member of Study Material Research Group of NIRC of ICAI. He was awarded upcoming Speaker of the Year of NIRC of the ICAI in April 2013. It is all about our speaker, respected speaker Rajat Mohan. So now I will request Rajat to take over the session and go ahead. Rajat, now you can take it. Hello, Rajat, you have to unmute your phone.
Sure. Yeah. So we'll go. So good morning, everyone. Thank you so much.
Hello.
So thank you so much, everyone, for allowing. So we all have to put our this on mute.
Please, all the members, please put your mobile on mute and also your video. Switch off your video also. Okay. Hello.
Okay, I have muted him. So good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me today's session. Just a couple of things before we start this session. So our today's session is impact of COVID on Indian commerce, only GST perspective. Just before I start, I would like to thank Priyanka and Alka from my team who has helped me regularly to develop this document. We have taken almost 15 to 20 days and we have discussed with numerous multinational corporations and advised them on impact of COVID, various issues with regard to tax invoices, ITC, what would be eligible, etc. We have already discussed them with them and implemented. That is why we have this is how we have drafted this presentation and brought in front of you. The second point I would like to mention here is that I always believe that as an individual and as a human being, our knowledge is limited. So we have tried to do best what we can. But yes, there is no single answer to numerous problems. There could be numerous answers to numerous problems. Thereby, it is in the particular circumstances only whereby I am sharing my knowledge. If you have a different view, you are open to discuss, you are open to throw questions at us. After every completion of particular set of slides, around 3 to 4, we'll stop and ask for questions. Maybe you can, write down your questions here in the chat window also. And after that, we'll take all together with, after 4 to 5 slides, we'll take all the questions. So now I start my presentation. So this is primarily there are two main slides that we have to discuss. One is the short-term measures by government, and another is COVID-19 impact of GST. Please note that the short-term measures by the government, it includes, small measures which we already know, extension of dates, accepting of bond or undertaking, interest waiver, late fee waiver. So I'll not be discussing all this in very detail. I'll just mention them. What my main focus was 90% of the time, or I'll say 95% of the time, we'll be spending only on the COVID-19 impact on GST. We'll of course share the presentation with you. So all these prologues, glossaries, you may read at your own end at a later date. So short-term measures, couple of short-term measures the government has taken: extension of return filing timelines. Taxpayers below 5 crores and above 5 crores, it is 9%. Besides that, they have also given extension of time for Sabka Vishwas scheme. Compliance procedures under GST all has been extended till 30th of June, or I'll probably say till last week of June. Now GST audits and annual filings need to be done by 30th of September. E-way bills have been extended, refunds have been processed, advance authorization has been extended till 2021. So beyond this, let's go to our main slide. Yes, so these are our main slides. What is the impact of GST? Right. So first of all, my first slide reads cancellation or reduction in prices of contract. So what happened is, after GST, after COVID, many of the clients and customers are forcing their vendors, to reduce the prices or take return of goods, or to give some kind of discounts. So we all assume that it's only a operational thing, or it's only a contractual thing, and it's very easy to give those discounts. But I don't believe that. Let's discuss all the points one by one. So first of all, what we are discussing is trading and manufacturing sector. So in case of trading and manufacturing sector, if any customer has returned the goods to the vendor itself, meaning thereby if there is any supplier, and he has been returned the goods, then what will happen? Can he reduce or take an adjustment or take a refund of entire taxes from government? I would request everyone to put it on mute.
सुशील सर નો बर्थडे છે ભાઈ.
So this is, if someone has returned the goods, then in such a case, what will happen to the credit, or what will happen to the tax that already been deposited by the supplier? So let's take a very simple example. In the pre-COVID period, that is in the month of December to January, February, or March, anywhere, if a supplier has sold some goods, whether as a trader or as a manufacturer, for 1 lakh rupees, and he has charged 18% tax. The total invoice was for 1,18,000. 1 lakh is the value of goods, and 18,000 is the taxes on it. Now the recipient has received those goods pre-COVID period, and he has also received the tax invoice. However, due to COVID or due to n number of other circumstances, he wants to return these goods. Can he return these goods operationally? Answer is yes. Now the next question is, can we reverse the credit also? Because as a customer, who has paid 1,18,000 to me, he'll of course like to have the entire money back because he's canceling the full contract. The entire goods that he has been sold are being returned as it is. So he will always like his 18,000 tax or 18% tax to be returned. So think about a supplier who has received 1,18,000 and he has paid 18,000 to Government of India, and now he is again being pushed to pay back 1,18,000 to recipient of goods. Is this possible? Yes. Is this legal? Absolutely. So can he get 18,000 back from Government of India? So answer is yes, he should legally, principally, he should get, but there are a couple of, I'll say, embargoes or the conditions in section 34 reading credit notes. So first of all, one of the conditions for credit note is if you can issue a GST credit note where the goods are returned by the supplier. So first condition is satisfied that goods are returned by the recipient to the supplier. So there is a next condition. Condition number 2, we may read that provided that no reduction in output tax liability of the supplier shall be permitted if incidence of tax and interest on such supply has been passed on to any other person. Meaning thereby, if supplier has already passed on the incidence of tax, so interest is not relevant here, where the supplier has already passed on the incidence of tax to any other person, meaning thereby, in this case, it will be recipient. If the supplier has passed incidence of tax to the recipient, in such a case, there is no adjustment of tax would be allowed, meaning thereby the supplier will not get the adjustment of 18,000 rupees if he has already passed on the incidence of tax. What is very important here is to read section 49 subsection 9. So 49 subsection 9 is a deeming fiction. It clears a deeming clause and it says that every person who has paid the taxes on goods or services, meaning thereby if supplier has already paid the goods or service tax GST to Government of India, then unless the contrary is proved by him, he shall always be deemed to have passed full incidence of such tax. Meaning thereby, you have introduced, Government of India has introduced a deeming fiction through section 49 subsection 9, stated that if a person has paid the tax, meaning thereby if the supplier has already paid the tax to Government of India, then in the first case, it will always be deemed that the incidence of tax has been passed. So what is the impact of this provision? So impact of this provision is, so you will not get a tax adjustment. Your supplier will not get a tax adjustment until and unless he contrarily proves this provision. So I'll just, take a small break and tell you the importance of, so please note that all these provisions are very in-depth provisions and we'll be discussing them in a very deep manner, discussing every clause, sub-clause, section, issues that may arise. We are not assuming that, we should not in fact assume that governments are making false promises. The government are making promises that, during the COVID period, whatever transactions you have entered into and they will not question, they will believe you, etc. We should not believe all this for the first reason that this has already happened with us. So VAT was also implemented in way back in 2005. GST is implemented in 2017. We have already seen numerous litigations on basic of the basic points. We have already seen government litigating GST credit like anything. We have already seen number of retrospective amendments. We have already seen Delhi High Court saying that there is no time limit under GST and the credit could be available till 30th June 2020. Government has made a retrospective amendment. So we should not take the words of government like that. To my mind, all these tax positions would be challenged in a long-term scenarios for the simple reason the scrutiny, the power to scrutinize your account lies with government for 6 long years. So your books of accounts could be scrutinized, you could be questioned, notice could be served on you for a period of 6 long years. Whatever COVID, etc. is going on now, it may not be there. I'm saying may not be there after 2 years or 3 years. Department will never listen that you have committed a mistake during COVID period and they will allow you scot-free. They might not give you a notice immediately in next 3 months. but your tax position has to be watertight. That is why I'm discussing this provision. Numerous of my clients are facing return of goods. In case of return of goods, you have to prove that incident tax has not been passed. Section 49 says incidence is deemed to have been passed. It is very difficult to prove. So now I will discuss the solution. What is the solution to this? So ideally, every one of us is a professional. To my mind, 99% of the listeners today are professional from professional background. Thereby, I'll just say there are two types of supplies, B2B supplies and B2C supplies. Right. In case of B2B supplies, the supply is made to a registered person. Whenever the person purchasing the goods or the recipient of goods or services is a registered person, it is known as B2B supplies. So in case of B2B supplies, we always have an invoice, we have a single invoice, we have a single recipient, and the payment is also coming through banking channels. So if the payment is coming through banking channels and the payment is returned through banking channels, it is absolutely possible and absolutely easy to prove that the payment against this invoice of 1 lakh rupees was received in our bank account on this date for 1,18,000, and on a particular date or on a subsequent date, the entire amount of 1,18,000 was returned to the recipient itself. So meaning thereby, if you are able to prove beyond reasonable doubt that the entire money that you have received from your recipient has been returned to him in total, then because of banking channel payments, you will be able to prove that the incidence of tax has been passed. This is the case of B2B supplies. To my mind, proving that the incidence has been passed is much easier. It is easy to prove that because the transactions are big, the goods are generally going in wholesale, you have the entire audit trail. However, what happens in case of B2C supplies, it is much difficult. Think about a retail chain, think about a shopkeeper who has sold some goods, a Kiryana wala who has sold some goods, and post GST after a month or 2 months, if goods are returned by a homemaker. So will he issue credit note? He should issue credit note. But that credit note is not perfect. And at the time of sale of goods, the entire money was received in cash. Even if you issue a credit note today and tell the government, look, sir, this lady or this person has taken back the money, how will you prove beyond reasonable doubt? You cannot. So if you have sold a packet of sugar for 100 rupees and charge 18 rupees GST on it, you must have issued invoice of 118 rupees. After 2 months, you could have issued credit note for 118 rupees, but how will you prove that you have paid 118 to that lady or to that person on the particular date against this credit note? It is very difficult to prove. So I have advised two things on this. A, we must take a counter sign of the person who is receiving such money. It is very important to take the counter sign of that person. And I am assuming your name, address, mobile number, phone number, etc. would be enlisted either on the invoice or on the credit note on which this guy is signing. So credit note must be counter signed. This will reduce your risk, but the risk will not be zero. I'll suppose, so one of my clients who is dealing into creams, they are selling cream, they manufacture creams and they sell creams. So they have shops all over India. The cream is for 200, 100 rupees. A lot of people took that cream and now they are returning. What we did was, so they all are IT guys. They all have good information technology system. So what we did was, together with a credit note, we also printed a pre-fed declaration, whereby it was stated that I, the name of the person, hereby declare that I purchased this product against this invoice, which I am returning hereby to this company, ABC Private Limited. And against this, I have received my complete amount of INR this, which should match. Right now, this thing would be signed. Now there are two documents with you. One is a credit note, which is countersigned by the recipient, and another is a self-declaration that he has written and signed. It could be prefed because in his case it was through a system. So you have to make sure that in case of B2C supplies, these documents are available with the supplier if he wants to claim an adjustment of tax. Yes. Right. So we go forward, trading and manufacturing sector. This was the first problem where the goods are returned by customer. We go to the next issue. In the trading and manufacturing sector itself, where there is a discount being asked by a customer. So in one of our clients' case, or what happened was, there was a person who was designing and manufacturing in India, and then he was selling these goods to a particular person in wholesale. So as per agreement, this guy was designing product, and 100% of the material produced by him has to be sold to a single recipient only, meaning thereby he always had a single customer from day one of his operation. Now what happened is he has sold goods for a longer period, but immediately on 20th of March 2020, the moment there was a COVID, what happened was the customer said, look boss, I am unable to sell your goods, and the distance between the seller and the buyer was so long that the buyer said, I cannot transport the goods back to you, it will be very costly for me, thereby I request you to give me a 90% discount. Yes sir, please note that he said, please give me a 90% discount in the entire value. If you will not give that discount to me, I'll never purchase from you. So this was the condition, and the finally the supplier has to bow down and give him a 70 or I think 80% of discount. So what happened? The value of the goods has been, so earlier the goods were sold for 100% value. Now there is a credit note of 80% value. What is important? Can we take a refund from government, or can we take an adjustment of taxes that has already been paid? This was the question to me. So what happens? Let's understand section 15 very carefully. Section 15 is the section that determines the taxable value of a supply. That section very categorically says that in case of any discount which has been effected after the supply, if you want to take an adjustment of tax on the same, then two conditions are required to be fulfilled. The second condition I'm discussing with you first. The second condition is the tax credit that has been taken by a recipient must be reversed by the recipient. This is second condition. We all know that this is very difficult to prove, and no one will share his GST or 3B, etc. So there is a lot of risk around the case 2. There is a lot of risk around condition number 2. But we already know that I'm not discussing that. What I will be discussing is condition number 1, which we always miss. So condition number 1 is very crystal clear that such discount shall be established in terms of the agreement. Sir, tell me one thing. Has any government in the world, not even I think World Health Organization, has ever been able to think that the world would be in pandemic in 2020? If they themselves have, the governments and the politicians and the World Health Organization, United Nations have never been able to contemplate that there will be a virus all over country whereby the entire economies would be shut down, how can you and me think about this kind of a pandemic while entering into a contractual obligation? Meaning thereby, to my mind, I have not seen even a single agreement till date whereby there is a condition stated in the agreement that supplier and recipient could give and take discount in account of any pandemic. Meaning thereby, my contracts does not read that a discount could be given in case of a coronavirus, or discount could be given in case of a pandemic, or discount could be given in case of a lockdown, or discount could be given in case of a health issue that entire country is facing. All these clauses are not being mentioned. When all these clauses or conditions are not being mentioned in my agreement, then how can I say that such discount is allowable in terms of the agreement? The discount cannot be allowed, sir, because it has not been mentioned in the agreement. Now, a couple of people. So what happens is whenever you advise a client that you can give him a discount on his client, what he started advising me that you can give him a discount on his GST that. So he said, it's very easy for us. We can enter into a supplementary contract, or we can enter into an addendum, or we can enter into an annexure, whereby my contract reads that there is a residuary clause. The world over, now the discounts are possible even in case of a pandemic. Sir, I said, please read the section 15 carefully. Such discount is established in terms of the agreement entered into at or before time of such supply. Sir, the terms of the agreement must read that there has to be a discount. There has to be a discount. Then adjustment will not be available. To my mind, any kind of supplementary contract, any kind of addendum, any kind of annexure entered into or given after the supply of such goods or services would not be permitted. No such discount would be available. No such adjustment of tax do. Now coming forward, so one more guy has given one more opinion to me, and he said what happens is there is a residuary clause in the agreement which says that discount could be given for anything which has been whereby my contract reads has a residuary clause. Sir, in case your contract has a residuary clause, still I believe that credit cannot be available or the credit is not available. Adjustment of credit will not be available for a very simple reason that such contract must the such contract must have established a discount in terms of such an agreement. Sir, we'll take all the questions after 3 to 4 slides. Let me complete this idea of postal discount in manufacturing as well as service sector. Then we'll take a pause and then we'll take all the questions. No worries. So we come back established in terms of an agreement. So if my agreement reads that there is a residuary clause, and then can I have an adjustment of taxes that has already been paid? To my mind, no. I'll give you the reason. So if we read very carefully, established in terms of an agreement, what does it mean? Sir, established in terms of an agreement means the mechanism, the formula, the methodology of calculation has to be established. There are two persons in any contractual obligation. One is supplier and one is a recipient. The mechanism has to be so established that whether it's a supplier or it's a recipient, both are able to calculate the same amount of discount, irrespective of any biasness or unfairness on anyone's part. It is very important. So the first judgment on this issue was an Ultratech Siemens judgment. You must read that judgment. That judgment was very clear. All the agreements were very clear. That discount could be offered. Supplier can give a discount. Recipient can take a discount. There is no problem. And then, but however, the one of the things that is mentioned was that supplier has to give a discount as per his own discretion. Although there was a formula established between how it used to work, but it said it has to be on the discretion of supplier and he has to calculate, meaning thereby recipient does not have any mechanism to calculate such a discount. Sir, whereby recipient does not have any mechanism, or I'll say even the supplier does not have any mechanism, I don't believe it is established in terms of contract. It is only mentioned. There is a difference whereby the words established and there is a difference between mentioned. So to my mind, adjustment of this cannot be available primarily due to three reasons. First, we don't have a clause in my agreement. Even if we have a clause in my agreement, it is not established in terms of the agreement. It does not have a formula in that agreement. And the third is, even if we enter into some kind of an extra or addendum, still on the date of entering into this agreement, such item was not available, right? So now what happens is the next question is what will happen. So if I've sold good worth rupees 1 lakh and there is a discount of 50% to it, does that mean I have wasted 50% of my tax? So the answer is no. I don't think you have wasted 50% of the tax. But yes, you cannot get a refund back from the government of India. One thing is very clear. So how can we do it? Sir, you can not take the amount back from government of India, but your recipient can take input tax credit of the entire amount. I'll repeat, your input tax credit could be taken by your recipient for the entire amount. Meaning thereby, even if 50% discount of the value has been given, still 100% tax rate would be available to him. This is not being said by me. This has been said by AAAR Tamil Nadu, whereby I'll read the last line. Proportionate reversal of ITs is not required in case of post-purchase discounts, MRF case. So thereby, the adjustment of value has to be through a financial credit note, and there will be no reversal of input tax credit. So let me take you through 4 to 5 to 6 cases which proved this point. So a lot means, so there is another provision in section 16 and rule 37 that if you don't pay the amount within a period of 180 days, then there has to be an ITC reversal. So exactly my point that this case law is with regard to those sections and provisions in law only, whereby I said no such reversal will be required. However, this law has developed. First of all, AR gave a wrong ruling, then AAR gave a right ruling. So let us read all those 5-6 cases. Yes, so first case was for MRF case in 2019. AAR Tamil Nadu Advanced Ruling Authority held that applicant can avail input tax credit on the value raised by supplier less discounts, meaning thereby they very categorically stated that applicant, meaning thereby recipient, can avail input tax credit only to the extent of invoice value raised by supplier less discounts, meaning thereby they said you will not get the 100% credit. In case of a financial credit note, you will get only the credit which is after discount, meaning thereby if there is a 50% discount, then you will get only 50% of tax credit. This was MRF AAR. This was a wrong ruling. What happens is appellant went to AAR, appellate authority, for advance ruling, and thereby AAR agreed to the applicant and said that proportionate reversal of ITC is not required in case of post-purchase discounts. Meaning thereby AAR has agreed that even if you have given a 50% discount, your recipient can take 100% input tax credit. Now we come to Sanghvi Motors, again a AAR bench judgment by AR Tamil Nadu, again a wrong judgment, whereby they said no ITC will be available where payments are netted off against receivables. We all as accountants understand there is a debit balance and there is a credit balance. So this judgment says if you do not pay any amount and adjust debit is to credit, then no ITC would be available to the extent of such an adjustment, because you have not made a payment. Sanghvi Motors, AAR, again a wrong judgment. Applicant again went to this appellate authority, AAR, and AAR said branch is eligible to claim full ITC on the invoices. So they agreed that irrespective of the fact that there was a netting off or not, full adjustment would be available on invoices raised. So coming to the next, Senco Gold, AAR West Bengal, ITC admissible even if payment is made through a book entry. Same thing, if there is a financial credit note or there is an adjustment through book entry, full ITC would be admissible. So up till now, so this is the case of two major cases in case of this trading and manufacturing concern. Now I move to the services sector. After this, we'll take your questions. Just two more slides, I suppose. Yes. So similar problems are also rising. Goods cannot be returned to service sector, so I have not taken that. Discounts could be there, but discounts could be termed as this reduction in prices or cancellation of contracts. So a couple of things are same which we have already discussed in this trading and manufacturing, that input tax credit. There is a one big point in this section 34. So I never assumed that this would be a problem. One of my clients, this lady CFO of a company, she told me that this is a big problem. So what happens is, you can raise credit note in 4 circumstances only. So first circumstance is whereby the taxable value charged is more than the taxable value which should have been charged. Meaning thereby you and me, we both have entered into a contract saying that AMRG will provide you some services for 1 lakh rupees. So at the time of preparing an invoice, my accountant by mistake, instead of 1 lakh rupees, wrote 10 lakh rupees and issued you an invoice. So this was a clerical error, whereby the taxable value actually charged in invoice is much more than, or I'll say more than, the taxable value which should have been charged. In that case, a credit note can be given. This is case 1. Case 2, the same guy who was to invoice you for 1 lakh rupees had to charge 18% GST on the invoice, but instead of charging 18% GST, by mistake he charged 28% GST. So this was his mistake. So again, the taxes charge is more than the taxes what should have been charged. Again, in this case, credit note can be raised. The third case is where the goods have been returned by the recipient. So this is the third case. This cannot arise in service sector. The fourth case is very important, which is applicable to us. This has been marked in bold also. Goods or services or both supplied are found to be deficient. Sir, as a supplier, whenever you give credit note, I don't think first 3 conditions would be applicable to you. What would be applicable to you is the fourth condition. Fourth condition says you have to agree that the goods or services or both supplied are found to be deficient. So it is very important for you to prove, or I'll say to accept first, in that case, first to accept deficiency of services. So to my mind, you go to any big player, they will never agree to deficiency in services. Never ever agree. Sir, you have taken a lot of services from hospitality sector, from these online make my trip portals, from hospitals, ITs. So the moment they write you a letter that yes, there was a deficiency in services, and they accept that there was a deficiency in services, that letter, that single page letter could any time be taken up by a news or media agency and printed on the first page. You think about a case whereby this actor named Rahul Bose consumed 2 bananas for 400 rupees in a 5-star hotel, and he said there is an 18% GST on it. He just clicked and tweeted. The next day, it was there in every other newspaper. I think it was a case of JW Marriott, and they suffered a huge brand loss to it. And based on that, number of notices were also issued by tax officers. That is a separate matter. But if any hotel chain accepts that there is a deficiency in services, or any service provider accepts, whether he'll accept that there was a deficiency in service. Let's understand the case of hospitality hospitals. In hospital, to my mind, 20 to 30% of the cases, in 20 to 30% of the cases, every other person knows someone in the hospital and requests for a discount. And in 20 to 30% of the cases, discounts are being offered from as small as 5% to 30%. So in all those cases, if a discount is offered, if there is a downward revision in prices, will hospitals ever agree that there is a deficiency in services? Hospitals will never agree that there is a deficiency in service. If hospital writes you a letter that we accept that yes, there was a deficiency in services, you can take that letter and go to media. You can take that letter and go to Ministry of Health and say, please close down this hospital. They themselves agree that they were deficient in providing services. So to my mind, hospitals can never agree. To my mind, any big hospitality chain, any big chain of 5-star hotels, restaurants, will never agree that there is a deficiency in services. I also, got a case of an IT services. Let's assume Google. Google is providing you some services of, advertisement. You didn't get a proper reply from you didn't get a proper result of that. Thereby, you filed a complaint to Google and they decided to waive off some amount. Will Google ever agree that there was a deficiency in services? Even if they do agree, when a service is provided by a system, when the services is provided by a code, how can there be deficiency in services? Systems are governed by code. They always give you the same result when you put the same query. There could be a problem in you putting up a query, but the system will always give you the same result. Thereby, in hospitality, it is difficult. In hospitals, it is difficult. In IT services, even you have accept, how will you prove it? Because when the tax officer comes and asks you to prove what was the deficient in explain, and if you are not able to explain, then you did not fulfill the condition of section 34. You would be required to deposit the tax with interest of 18%, maybe with some penalty also. Thereby, deficiency in services for service sector is very important. Be careful. To my knowledge, lot many people, lot many service providers, we ourselves as a chartered accountant are also issuing this discounts. And think about a chartered accountant. I have given a discount. I charge you 1 lakh rupees. I give you 10,000 rupees discount. And out of this has to be in deficiency in services. Tomorrow I have a case in the GST office and they ask me to explain was there a deficiency in services. If I accept that and the fees was for, let's suppose, statutory audit, he'll give that letter to NAFRA. He'll give that letter to SEBI and say the chartered accountant himself has agreed that there was a deficiency in services. That is why he's given a discount. So we all have to be very careful. Even in our case also, whenever we are giving discounts. So we can easily not, so a couple of people ask me what is the way out. So why there has to be a way out? The way out is simple. Let your recipient take the full input tax credit. Why do you want to bear the risk of him? So once you are giving him a discount and he enjoys that benefit, but don't take the risk of tax on yourself or your supplier. Let's move to the last slide of this section and then we'll discuss your queries. So the next issue is advance on services. So this happened in one of my clients, which is into 5-star hotels. What happened is, pre-GST regime, they have long-term bookings. Pre-COVID period, they have long-term bookings. This problem would also be there in the aviation sector. But however, immediately on 20th of March or 24th of March, everything was closed down, everything was shut down. Now they cannot give a service. Once they cannot give a service, but they have taken some money. They have taken some money and paid GST on advances. Now the recipient of services wants the advance back and again wants the entire advance back. So what will happen? You have to return the entire advance to him and take the benefit of tax adjustment from the government of India. So one thing that has come is recently a circular came 137 that was a very beneficial circular for the entire sector, which said that in such cases whereby the contracts are cancelled and you are giving the advances back, then the entire amount would be refunded to you. You just have to apply to the government under a particular section of RFD 01 and a refund would be immediately issued to you in case of cancellation of contracts. So one clarification which one of my clients asked is, Kisab, do we all have to go into refund mechanism only? Going to depart section 137 clarified that the supplier can take a refund. It didn't say supplier shall take a refund. So it was a mandatory. It was only a benefit that was given whereby your supplier can take a refund also from government of India. If it does not want to take a refund, if he wants to claim an adjustment, most welcome, he can claim an adjustment in the next month itself. One thing I would like to highlight here, I have not written in the presentation, that recently a rule has been passed whereby it says the entire amount being refunded will not come to your cash ledger. it will come to your cash ledger and credit ledger in the proportion in which the taxes were paid by you. Meaning thereby, if you have adjusted 90% of input tax credit while paying a tax and only 10% has been used for paying cash, then if a 10 crore rupees refund is given, then 9 crore will come to you in your credit ledger and 10%, that is 1 crore, will come to you in cash. This is the recent change that has been made in the GST rules. So we should not assume that even if we get the refund, then the refund would be available in cash. There is a high probability that a lot of refund would be available in credit itself. Thereby, you can still take that adjustment and not take the hassles of applying for the GST refund. So this was my slide with regard to up to we complete up till one section. So now any queries, we are happy to take it.
Hello.
Hi, sir.
I was just thinking, like, is it the rule that the vendor cannot become a supplier and supplier cannot become vendor?
Fine. So you want a reverse invoicing, right?
Yes,
So
simply.
it can be done. It can be done. So there is a circular. I'll tell you the name of the. In fact, government has accepted this. There is a circular in case of expired goods or drugs with regard to pharmaceutical. If you'll search, I don't remember the number, in which government has itself said that in such cases you can raise a reverse invoice. So your vendor can raise an invoice or your customer can raise an invoice just to set off all this. So these problems will not arise. But sir, so having said that, in many of our cases, what we witnessed was it was not easy to do that because so let's think about from a very, so I'm giving all these problems from a very big companies. So as if you are a small practitioner, I am a small practitioner, and I have to give a 50% discount for an advisory services, I can always agree that there was a deficiency in services, right? Whereas a big brand will never agree that there was a deficiency in services. So if I do a reverse billing, so if my customer starts invoicing me, first of all, if he's a B2C customer, that is not a possibility. If he's a B2B customer, then of course he can do that. But think about it from the perspective of bigger companies. In MCA, there is a Ministry of Corporate Affairs. They'll ask you how have, so this thing changes. So if the company starts billing you, so instead of purchases, it becomes their output liability. It becomes their sales. Now in financial statements, they will have to show it as a sale. So if your company is into manufacturing, can they render CA services? And this will not be one case. Now, for a manufacturing company, they have 1,000 line items of purchases and they have to take discounts in everything. So can they raise 1,000 bills for small amounts saying CA services, saying advocate services, saying freight services, saying a number of, so it was not, so I have already analyzed it. Practically, it was not possible in COVID. But yes, if it is not COVID, it's some other period and there is one invoice or two invoice, you may contemplate and think about doing it.
Yeah, I agree.
Right, sir. Any other questions, sir? Anyone, any other question? So should I move forward? Okay. Okay, I'll move forward. So the next issue that we'll be discussing is ITC related complications. So COVID has given rise to a lot of ITC related complications. There will be a lot of difficulties with regard to claiming input tax credit. Let us see all these problems one by one. Sir, please note that all these problems have been faced by us. We have given an opinion on this. This is our view. If you disagree with this view, please write it down. After 5 to 6 slides, we'll discuss with you. We'll be happy to discuss with you. So first of all, one of my CFOs called me up and she said what happens is an invoice is lying in offices. So what happened the moment the 20th of March, they closed down their offices. So all the invoices were left on their desk. All the invoices were left on the reception or near the computers. So for all those invoices, they on 31st of March, it is not available in hand with them, or some of the invoices have been received on email also. So she asked me a very simple question: can we avail the input tax credit? So you would have rightly guessed the answer could not be yes. If the answer had been yes, I would not be a consultant. Everyone knows the answer, right? So I asked her to give me a 2 day or 3 days just to think on this issue. Sir, if we read the provision, Section 16 says the supplier must be in the possession of a tax invoice. I asked the company, I asked the CFO, I asked that lady to please share with me the standard operating procedures of the company for approval of invoices, for payment of invoices. And I was astonished to see that practically the processes were the invoices has to come to reception. The lady at reception will make a register and enter all these invoices. Then she'll mark a date on it. And then the invoice will travel from reception to the concerned user department. User department, they have 3 people involved. All those 3 people will check the services or goods, and then they do QC, and then they write a date, they approve, they sign, and then they go to finance department. And in the finance department also there were 2 levels of check, level 1, level 2. Then they finally, reach the final level CFO for final approval. So once the invoices are closed, once the offices are closed and invoices are lying in my offices, meaning thereby they have not passed through this entire SOP. My company says that it has to pass through 7 or 8 different levels. Has they passed? It has not passed. So all the things, all the invoices that are available on 31st of March or in the month of March, they were not invoices. They were mere documents. They were mere papers. Nobody has approved that. They have not passed through your standard operating procedures. So once they have not passed your standard operating procedures, they are no more an invoice. They are a mere paper. How can you take that credit? I'll ask one more question. Let us assume I give an advice to your company. Let us assume I don't give an advice to your company. We just met, and I send you an invoice for worth rupees 50 crores on 31st of March. Can you take input tax credit? You cannot. You don't even know who is Rajat Mohan. You don't even know whether you have taken the advice or not. What will you do? You will enter the invoice, you will give it to user department will reject it. But user department will take 3 months or 4 months to reject it once they open the office on 30th of June. What decision you will take on 31st of March? You cannot take the credit because you yourself know whether the services were received or not, whether this has been passed or not, whether this has been approved or not. In this case, document is not an approved document. So internally, you may know, yeah, you may give a call to that person and ask whether you have taken the services from Rajat or not. They may say yes, but still your SOP stands there. We are talking about a public company, or we are talking about a company. We are not talking about a proprietor. Had it been a case of proprietor, it would have been a different thing. That proprietor, proprietor enjoys the entire power and he can change the SOPs when he wants. For a company, you cannot. For many things, you have to go to board of directors. Sir, in my mind, to my mind, the invoices that are lying in your offices or on your email, if they have not passed through all the SOPs of your company, they are not invoices. They are a mere paper. You should not take those credits. But many of the people would say, and this is the same problem that we see in every 31st of March. What is different? So COVID is different. Every 31st of March, no one knew that it was COVID. So if you're a tax officer, so please think that the main thing is it is 6 years in which your books would be assessed or scrutinized or analyzed. You can have a notice for 6 years. What will you do? If your tax officer writes you whether this thing has passed through SOP, please bring me the invoices. On the invoice itself, the date of passing or approval will be after 31st of March. Sir, when your invoice got approved in 30th of June, how can you take credit on 31st of March? These were not approved. What will you say? What is your argument? And why we should get into an argument? So I think it's very difficult. Now coming to the consultant part, is it possible to take the credit? Yes, we can. What is important? What is standing in our line is not an invoice or is not a service. It is the SOP. Please change the SOP. take the help. So I don't know whether you have to pass through board of directors or CFO or CEO, whatever. So whatever the process for in a company, everything has a process. So by using that process, please change an SOP for or till the time of this lockdown, or whatever the time you want to, and state that invoices can come to your email and an email approval would suffice. In such cases, you have to change your SOP, and if you are able to change your SOP, then probably by following the new SOP you can take it away. There is no doubt. Then it becomes an invoice, but there has to be a change in SOP. All right, sir. Now I go move to my next slide. So similarly, from that, taking a clue from that, what happened in one of my companies, every year there is a account name provision for expenses. Every year the provision for expenses were around 1 crore to 2 crore. This year that finance director told me, sir, it would be around 100 crores. What has happened? He said, sir, there are some uncertainties. We have a lot of invoices coming in last month of March. And because as we want to book the GST credit, thereby we have booked all the invoices. But there are a lot of uncertainties around you. We may not have followed the entire SOPs. But beyond that also, even if we have, still there are uncertainties. In many cases, they are not approved by user department. We are not clear about the amount. We are not clear about the services. We are not clear about the goods being received, etc. Due to all these uncertainties, we have booked in the provision for expenses. Just to, so that I can claim an input tax credit and my working capital does not get hit. So this is wrong. As per accounting standards, provision is when there is something uncertain. What would be the uncertainty? The uncertainty would be on the receipt of goods or services, the uncertainty with respect to the possession of invoice, the uncertainty with regard to payment of taxes, the uncertainty with regard to any other thing. So this is not a crystal clear liability. To my mind, you will not fulfill the conditions of section 16 if you are booking an amount in provision for expenses. If you do, then why are you booking it in provision for expenses? You should book it as a crystal clear liability in the name of the vendor itself. So what I'm saying is, I'm not saying no ITC will ever be available for any provision for expenses. What I'm saying is, if as a GST auditor, there is a significant increase in provisions, or even if they are not, you must analyze all the provisions and see why the credit has been taken. If the credit has been taken, why does accounting standards still see the same amount as a provision and not as a liability? This is what we have to be certain and be clear. To my mind, an intelligent tax officer will always ask for a detailed breakup of provisions invoice wise. Are not permitted. You must have an input text. You must have an invoice in your hand. You must fulfill all the stipulations under GST law. Otherwise, tax officer is always on your head. So ITC in provisions. To my mind, be very careful. Next slide, we come additional expenses. Yes. So what happens is, a lot of additional expenses are happening for a supplier for every business enterprise. So these expenses could be in the nature of sanitization, special health insurances, food for employees at factory, etc. So training for employees, someone asked me to train. So one of the CA firms I know, they have daily 4 to 5 hours of training online. Daily. So I know a CA firm, daily 4. They say we don't have work, thereby we are training our own. These are internal training. One training in the morning for 2 hours and one training in the evening for 2 hours. So they are spending a lot on training of their employees. Would all these credits be available or not? Question mark. So let's discuss them one by one. So let's discuss the first, this health insurance. So by section 17 blocks certain input tax credit. It says no credit for food and beverages, no credit for health insurance, health services, except when the same services are obligatory for an employer to provide them. Meaning thereby, if you are taking an health insurance, credit would not be available until unless it is an obligation of the employer to provide the same. Right. So one of my very big client called me up and asked me this question. What happens is, let's suppose the pandemic started somewhere in March 2020. He said, sir, we have taken an input tax credit in the month of June 2019. We have taken in health insurance services. And we didn't take any credit because it was not mandatory, it was optional. However, come March 2020, now they say there are new guidelines from MHA, Ministry of Home Affairs, and all these insurance have been made compulsory. Will he be able to take input tax credit for the proportionate amount? Meaning thereby, from June to March, of course, there is no credit available. Whether from March to June, March 2020 onwards, credit would be available. So answer is no. In this case, what happens is in June 2019, he had an entire invoice, he paid the amount, and the eligibility of the expense is required to be checked on June 2019 itself. Once it has been decided whether this is available or not, just because a future change in law will not affect the past eligibility of input tax credit that will arise in your books of accounts. That has already been booked in your books of accounts. So basically saying, if the eligibility of input tax credit shall only and only be seen at the time when the expense is booked in your books of accounts and not thereafter. Meaning thereby, if you have paid any insurance premium in June 2019 and it was not available, then today that being a condition of MHA guidelines, it will not become eligible. Let's move to the second point. He said, okay, now we come. So in the month of March 2020 also, they took a big insurance health policy and paid a huge premium. He said this policy is compulsory under MHA guidelines because MHA guidelines read that health insurance shall be taken in respect of all the workers. He sent me that policy, he sent me those guidelines. So this I'm talking about 10 days back, not today. So I asked him, Ki Saab, what is the definition of workers? The word worker, so MHA wrote workers, but they didn't define the word workers under the guidelines, under Disaster Recovery Act, or under GST Act. Workers have not been defined also. So when we don't have the definition of workers, how can we see that to whom this policy should apply? And various laws, various Factories Act, ESI Act, PF Act, all these acts give a different definition of worker. Will these definitions be applicable to MHA guidelines also? I don't know. A lot of MHA guidelines give recommendatory only. States are also required to, see those recommendations and formulate their own guidelines. So as a consultant, look boss, I don't know whether this is compulsory or not. But please note, if it is compulsory, you will get the credit. If it is not compulsory, you will not get the credit. So I don't go into whether a particular thing was compulsory or not. I had a word with the legal firm on this. They said it will take them at least a week to see whether this was compulsory in a particular state or not. So as a chartered accountant, we should not advise whether a particular thing is obligated or not. We may advise whether it will be available or not. So I didn't advise him based on I just asked him, if you think that it is obligatory, you will 100% get a credit. If you invoice is of the month of March and you book it in the month of March. Similarly for food and beverages, if you are providing free food, free beverages to your workers, to your employees, no credit is available. If there has been some mandate, then of course credit would be available. So what happened in one of my cases, it's a listed company case, what happened is this company was issued a notice by a local, local officer of labor laws saying that you must give food to your workers. And he himself, out of courtesy, he was giving food 3 times a day. So he said whether the credit would be available or not. I said, I think I should be available. But the problem is, law does not read as such. You don't have any piece of legislation saying in the state of Punjab, every employer is required to give a food. What do you have? A notice. So in case you have a notice only, then please make sure that notice is crystal clear. It categorically mentions that you are compulsorily required to give free food to your labor. The moment it is obligated, the moment it becomes an obligation, because that officer of state labor law has power under local local labor law. Under that labor laws, under some kind of a provision, he would have issued you an instruction or mandatory. If that mandate is there and you are able to get enough documents, so if document may read that it is advised that you must give food, you will not get a credit, it is only advice. If the document reads that you must give food, this is my order to you, this is my order to you under a particular section under law, you will get a credit. So I just asked him, so as a consultant also you can request your clients, if there is such a mandate, you must, save all these documents, you must save all these papers, because this would be required 100% sure. In COVID period, the tax collections of department are, if the government has not even shared the data of tax collection for the month of April. They used to share it by the last day of every month. This is the first time happening since 1st July. They have not shared the data of what was the revenue collection. It has been informed by several people that revenue collection of the states has been down by 80 to 90%. And in one of the questions being asked to a very senior employee, he's of many senior tax officer, he said they may not even give data till June, this tax collection data. So the revenue, there is a big revenue deficit, and the tax officers will be pressed on an annual level to make up for the losses. How will they make up for the losses? We all know very well. They will pull up all these points that this credit was not available and that credit was not available and you didn't pay the tax and this and that. So please be sure that you have enough proof for all this. So now coming to small other points. If you have sanitized your office, if you have cleaned your office, if you have taken sanitizers,